welcome to the Wealth Table, where mindfulness and action lead you to being wealthy. My name is Kimberly Y. Evans, and I am one of the co founders and co host of the Wealth Table.
And my name's Catherine Erickson, and I'm the other co founder and co host. So, Kimberly, it's the first of the year, and I know that you're involved in an online leadership training program, and it's got me really excited, hasn't it? So, I think there was something you wanted to share about goal setting. Is that what it is?
That is correct. And I want to share it because I think it's so appropriate for the Wealth Table and the way we go about encouraging our listeners and our viewers to really kind of think about where they're living their lives. So, first issue, I'm super excited about it because it's obviously Darren Hardy and it's all the things that go with everything Darren Hardy. And, there's several thought leaders that I follow because leadership is a big deal for me. But this one is the one I'm doing right now. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, and you and I write a lot and we talk a lot about the way people should have their relationship with money and what does that look like. But we also talk about how you change some of these things. How do you change what your relationship is with money? What does that look like? And so, one of the approaches that we were going through is really that you have to state who you are with money. And so, we all know I'm working on a book, right? And so, it's your relationship with money. Who are you with money? What does that look like? So, you need to make a statement about I am what? I am wealthy, I am prosperous, I am a good money manager. What are you with money? What does that look like? And I thought that was so profound because I think oftentimes we're trying to reach a certain status financially in our lives, whether it's to fix something, change something, but we never ever declare what that is. Does that make sense? Like, I know when
Yeah.
you're working with your clients, you're always like doing all these self evaluation types of things, but it really struck me like, well, people have money goals, but do they really? Like, who do you want to be with money?
Right. And that's a really interesting take on that because what I show my clients is what money really is. And it's just energy to exchange value. So when you define who you are with money, you're defining your value, your side of the equation. And money always reflects who you are.
Mhm.
So it's that old inside outside. It starts on the inside. So if I am abundant with money, money's going to be abundant with me.
Mhm.
So I love that. That's great.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because I think oftentimes we're trying to get somewhere, but we haven't really decided where that is. And the example I would use is like people always assume people want to be millionaires, but do you really? Like, is it just because social media tells you you are, the news and mainstream media tells you that you are? But are you really that person with money? Are you really that guy or that girl to say, I want to be a millionaire? I want to be, or are you really kind of like, no, I'm kind of good as long as I can pay my bills and maybe take a trip once a year, twice a year. I'm happy. Like I don't need all of that. I don't need a yacht and I don't need helicopters. And I don't need jets. And so it's really, and it's not a right or wrong answer, but really, who are you? And then I think the second step in the process is really defining what that goal is. So I am what? And then the goal to be that is what? Right? So I am prosperous or I am secure with my money. Security would then imply you have enough money to pay your bills, you have enough extra, you're good, right? But how do you get to that if you're not there? So, what is that goal that you were searching for? I want to have $10,000 in my bank account. I want to pay off all of my debt. What is the goal that gets you to that I am statement?
So I hear what you're saying. And the word goal, it could also be described as gap, where you are now and where you want to be to fulfill that I am statement. So if goals for me, I don't know, there's some negative connotations to it because if I don't hit my goal, I wasn't working hard enough or whatever. But if you look at the difference between where you are and where you want to be as a gap, and how do I fill that gap in order to reach and become that I am statement? That's just another way to frame it.
And the goals, and I think it's so important that you said that because goals are the results, it's the outcome, it's not
Yes.
the actual action or your
Yeah.
behavior or what you're doing, it's the outcome, the results you're trying to get to. So when you think about that gap, and if we would measure goals completely different, I think it would lose that negative connotation because goals are where you're trying to get to. So anything you're doing to get towards that goal, to hit that goal, right? is a success step. It is, you have done well. You are moving in the direction. We go from this concept of, I'm going from the bottom of Mount Everest to the top of Mount Everest right now. And God darn it, I didn't make it. So now I'm failure, right? And it's like, you're
Right.
not going to climb Mount Everest in a day. It's just not going to happen.
No, it takes
You're not going
months.
to, yeah, and you're going to have to train
Yeah.
for it and all these things, right? But that's how society makes us feel, right? I'm going to
Yeah.
go from here to there immediately. And if I don't, I'm a failure. Well, the reality
Okay.
of it is none of us do.
So before you move on to the next step, another way to frame this and to remind yourself during the day is to tell yourself to mind the gap. So we've defined what the gap is. It's where you are now and where you want to be. And I first heard the phrase mind the gap when I was in London about to step to the subway. And the announcer would, okay, this is the train going to blah, 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 and mind the gap. And that phrase stuck with me. So they were talking about the distance from the platform into the car, but it can also be applied to your daily activities. If you find yourself straying from the goal, using your word, or the gap, and doing, falling back into old habits, you can pull back and say, wait a minute, I want to mind the gap. I want to close this gap and reach the I am state of being that I've declared. So I
Mhm.
just wanted to
I
add that.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And I think it's so important, right? Because we want to give people tools and ways to reframe things so that it's effective for you. So the idea here is that you're getting to where your I am statement is. And
Right.
so the one thing that people have to realize is that when you're setting a goal, you have to put in the habits that go with that goal.
Mhm.
So for example, excuse me, for example, I want to get out of debt. Right. So what kind of behaviors can or kind of habits can you put to get out of debt? One of which is I'm not going to use my credit cards anymore. Right. I'm not going to charge. If I don't have the money to pay for it, I'm not buying it. That's a simple kind of habit that you can say, I'm not doing this anymore. Or I am going to go shopping and I'm always going to have a budget of this and I'm not spending any more than this, no matter what. Because one of the things I thought was interesting is when you start thinking about habits and thinking about the way you go about things, what you really want to do is replace a bad habit with a good habit. You don't want to be restrictive, you want to swap them out. Because what happens, we all know, and I wrote this down, is what we resist, we will persist,
Oh,
right?
persist. Right.
So instead of saying, I'm not going shopping at all, right? The reality of it is then you're going to go shopping anyway and you're going to go to the extreme. Or like people that say, well, I'm never going to eat pizza because it's bad for you, right? And so you don't eat pizza and then finally you get a pizza and you eat the whole thing because you haven't had a pizza. So
Yeah.
instead of resisting, then it's going to keep persisting. You really want to swap it out. So you want to replace a bad behavior with a good behavior so that you then feel empowered and feel motivated and feel like you can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So if your goal again is I want to be out of debt, what habits do you put in place to help you get out of debt? And so I think this is important. And Catherine, I think this is where it really comes into kind of your mental state and your mind shift or your shift in your mindset. Because one of the things people think is, again, we got to go from one extreme to the other, right? I'm going to get out of debt. I'm going to be out of debt tomorrow. Well, it didn't work, so I'm not doing it. It's like, no, there's a process here. You got to put some habits in that are going to help you get to that.
Right. It's the journey, not the destination.
Mhm.
But the destination, the I am statement, is what draws you forward. And if you've hit on an I am statement that's powerful enough to draw you forward into replacing new habits, you'll start noticing the change and you'll start becoming your I am statement. So yeah, I love that. Replace, don't restrict.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Replace, not restrict. I thought that was brilliant. And then the last part of this for today's conversation is really around your behaviors, right? So, for example, we're talking about getting out of debt, and you put in a habit that says, I'm only going to spend this much money when I go shopping or whatever. But what kind of behaviors do you need to put in place that causes that? So, do you need to do things like when I go shopping, I'm not taking my credit cards, I'm only taking my debit card? Is that a behavior? What kind of behavior patterns do you need to put in place that then you automatically are triggered to know this is what I said I was going to do. This is the habit I'm going to create. This is the goal I'm going to hit because I am going to be Yes. And it's so the buildup of it, right? So what happens is that you become better and better at this every single day. So every single time your behaviors are in place, your behaviors are going to allow for your habits to be in place. Your habits are going to help you hit your goal. Your goal is going to help you hit I am. And I was
Yep.
like, our listeners need to think about this way because the financial goals and the things that we need to have in our financial portfolios and the way we want to live our financial lives so that we have quality of life, all of these things matter, but how do we do it? And I was
Right.
like, well, we can share this and this is how they can do it. So who are you with money? I am what? Fill in the blank. And then
Right.
based on that, go through this process.
Right. I love that. Okay. So hopefully this has everyone excited as we are excited about it, and we hope you found value in it. And if one of the things that you want to improve about your financial planning is to add living benefits, reach out, call us, email
Yes.
us, because we can help you with that piece.
Yes, everybody should have a living benefits in their financial portfolio, every
Yes,
single person. So,
every
and if you don't
single.
believe us, go back and watch our podcast from last week and we'll explain to you in detail why.
Exactly. So thank you again for being here and taking your seat at the well table. We're here to help. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.